Guys, Chris from Hockey Tutorial here, and today in this video we're going to be checking out a few things that have changed about buying sticks over time. I'm also going to be touching on a couple of things that I feel are widely neglected when people are purchasing sticks. So regardless of your experience in hockey, this is going to be one of those videos that you will be able to take away something that you might not have known about previously. So let's jump into the video. But of course, before we start, please make sure that you thumbs up the video, and of course, make sure that you are subscribed so you're notified when we post a video. Making sure you give us a thumbs up and also subscribing helps to support the channel, it helps to keep us growing, helps to sustain us so we can create these videos and keep these videos coming. So before we jump in, thumbs up and also subscribe. The button's just down there somewhere. Make sure you subscribe before we jump in. Let's go. Now in this video we're going to be taking a look at a few elements that have changed about buying sticks over the last few years. Since we filmed a video about the things that you need to know before you pick up a hockey stick, I'll link that video down below because we go into a lot more detail about all of the different elements, but there are aspects to that that have changed over time, and that's what we're going to be looking at in this video, as well as a couple of elements that I feel are widely neglected when people are picking up sticks. Now, the first point we're going to be touching on before we jump into the meats and bones of all of the other details about sticks you need to consider when you're buying is going to be if you're new to hockey and you're trying to figure out if you're left or right-handed with a hockey stick. Now, depending on where you are in the world, some places will say that you want your dominant hand to be at the top of the stick for increased ability with poke checking or stick handling, etc. And some other places in the world might say that you want to have your dominant hand at the bottom of the stick, which will aid you in shot power. Let me know, based on where you're from, what the rule of thumb you could say is in your particular area. Dominant hand on top or dominant hand at the bottom? I personally believe it's, of course, like in many things in hockey, personal preference. Pick up a left-handed stick, pick up a right-handed stick, see which one feels more comfortable, and go with that option. But let me know what your take is down below in the comment box. Of course, to break this down, you guessed it, I'm going to be doing it in categories. The first category that we're going to be looking at is going to be the stick lie. From there, we're going to be moving on to stick flex. We're going to be taking a look at curve and also kick point. Now, a lot of us as hockey players, especially when I'm in shops and I hear people buying sticks and the process that they go through, we really focus on the curve, the flex, and of course the kick point. But I just don't feel like a lot of us are paying enough attention to the lie, because that is an incredibly important point that can affect every element of using a stick on the ice. And that's why it's going to be the first point in all of these categories that we're going to be looking at, lie. So if you're unfamiliar with what stick lie is, it's essentially the angle between the stick shaft and the blade. Now, what you can find with this is if you have the optimal or the correct stick lie on your hockey stick, when you're in your hockey stance on the ice, the position that you'd be in if you were stick handling, the one that I like to think about it is imagine that you're in your skates on the ice and you're about to receive a pass or give a pass. If you're in that position and you look down at your stick blade and the majority of the stick blade is in contact with the ice, the lie on your hockey stick is correct. So how does this whole thing with lie work? It works in numbers and you'll see them represented on a hockey stick. In the country that we live in right now, which is the United Kingdom, the most popular stick lies that we see is 4, 5, and 6. You can also find in between numbers, for example, 5.5, and depending on where you're shopping, the lie can also go up to 7 and 8. So there is variations depending on where you are in the world, but let's look at the most popular ones, 4, 5, and 6. Now, when we look at those lies, essentially each number correlates to an angle between the stick shaft and the blade. Now, if you were to increase the angle between the shaft and the stick blade, you would be essentially decreasing the lie. So for example, 4. A lie of 4 would have the biggest angle between the shaft and the stick blade. Now in reverse, if you are to decrease the size of that angle between the shaft and the stick blade, we could refer to that, for example, as a lie 6, which would be a higher lie. Now, the way this translates to on the ice, if you look down and you're in that hockey stance, either stick handling or getting to give or receive a pass, and you notice that your blade has more of the front portion of the stick's blade elevated off of the ice, you would be the type of player that would benefit from increasing the angle between the stick shaft and the blade. That would essentially mean going for a lower lie number. And in reverse, if you notice while you're in that skating stance on the ice with your blade on the ice, that the heel portion of the blade is elevated from the ice and it's mainly the front portion of the stick blade that's in contact with the ice, you'd be in reverse. You would be trying to decrease the angle between the shaft and the blade, or in other words, going for a higher lie number. Now, there are a couple of other ways that this translates. You'll often hear players that are taller could benefit from going for a higher lie number, and players that are shorter could benefit from going for a lower lie number. Now, while this might be accurate for a few players, I personally feel like it really doesn't come down to your height as much. it comes down to your skating stance. Because you could be a shorter player that likes to be really upright while they're playing, and vice versa, you could be a taller player that likes to be down low while they're playing. It really comes down to your stance on the ice. That's what's going to dictate which stick lie you should go for. And like I said, the best way to do this is preferably in your skates. Get into that skating stance. Imagine that you're going to be receiving or giving a pass, or your stick handling. Put the stick blade on the ground if you're not on the ice, and just take note of where the stick blade is coming into contact with the ice or the ground. Do you have maximum blade contact, or could you benefit from increasing the lie number or decreasing the lie number to increase the amount of blade that comes in contact with the ice? Having the incorrect lie, or a lie that's off, could affect you in many ways on the ice. It's going to affect you in terms of being able to give and receive passes, your ability to be able to keep your head up while you're stick handling, because you have to pay more attention to where the puck is on the blade, because you don't want to lose control of it. Which leads on to the next point very easily, which is going to be general puck control. You're going to be restricted in how you can maneuver and move the puck on the ice, because you don't have the maximum amount of the blade in contact with the ice, limiting your control over the puck. In addition to this, it's also going to really restrict you with your shooting. If you have minimal blade contact or not maximum blade contact, you're not going to be able to put as much power or transfer as much energy into the puck when you're shooting on the ice. So your stick handling, your shooting, your general control over the puck, all of these elements will be affected from having incorrect lie. So selecting the best lie for your hockey stance and your playing style is incredibly important. Now from there, it's going to be the element of flex. This is another one that has a lot of these rules of thumb. Now, something I have to mention, rules of thumb in hockey aren't rules that are set in stone. They're rules that work for a few players, or you could say quite a large number of players, but rules of thumb aren't something that are going to suit everyone across the board. It's just something to consider if you're completely lost. Now, the rule of thumb with flex, in my experience, has always been figure out what your weight is in pounds, half it, and that number, try and get it as close as you can to a stick flex, and that's the stick flex you should go for. So for example, I'm about 165 pounds. So if we half that number, the closest stick flex that I can get to would be, for example, an 85. Now in the past, I used an 85 for a number of years, but after collaborating with a bunch of other players, and also after working with Tommy, who is the equipment tester for all of the sticks that we use, and also skates that you guys have seen in a bunch of videos, he uses a flex. At the time, he was much younger when we started to collaborate together, and he was using, I believe it was a 70 or a 75 flex, which I thought was incredibly whippy for a player of his ability and his size. Now, of course, time's passed on, he's gotten even bigger, and he's still using 70 to 75. So naturally what I did was switch over to 70 and 75, because to keep things simple, I like to order all of the sticks that we have at the Hockey Tutorial office in his profile, because it means that if he breaks a stick, he can just grab one of the ones that we have there. So that meant I went from using 85 flex to 70 to 75 flex. I found that I could shoot better, harder, and that I had more control over the puck. So what this led me to kind of figure out is that a lot of players are using stick flexes that are way too stiff. The majority of players out there would benefit from going 1 or 2 levels of flex in their stick down. So if you're using an 85, you would probably find you'd benefit greatly to switching to a 75 or even a 70. The issue with stick flex is that you find that a lot of players kind of learn with whatever they have, if it's a stick that is incredibly stiff, and that's what they adjust to, and that's what they feel like they need to use. But it's always good to experiment, because you find even NHL players that are massive, that are heavy big guys, using stick flexes that are unbelievable, like Ovechkin using stick flexes less than 70, which before that was made public knowledge caught a lot of people off guard, including myself. So going for a stick that's more whippy can have a lot more benefits than a lot of people might think. It definitely does aid you in shooting, because at the end of the day, the majority of the force and energy that we transfer into that puck during our shots, if you want to have a big, powerful shot, regardless of what shot you're utilizing on the ice, it's using the flex built into those sticks. That's why it's there. So if you're able to utilize more of that flex by going for a stick that's slightly whippier than what you normally use, you as a player will benefit on the ice. So if you are somebody that is using a 85 flex or even 100 or more, try going down 1 or 2 levels of flexes below what you're using now and see how you get on. Flex, again, super important. You want to be able to put the maximum amount of force and power into every single shot you take on the ice, and having the right stick with the right flex can aid you significantly on the ice. Also, just receiving passes and just in general stick handling on the ice. Having the right flex will allow you to feel a lot more comfortable with the particular stick that you're using. So just bear that in mind. That rule of thumb of figuring out your weight in pounds, halving it, and then that number, identifying it, and then associating that with a stick flex that's closest to that number, It's a rule of thumb. Take that with a pinch of salt, but make sure that you're experimenting to see if going down in flex will benefit you, or maybe on the opposite scale, going up in flex might benefit you. Don't be scared to step outside what you think is the thing that you should be using, because you don't know what the results of trying something completely different could be. And of course, while we're looking at the notion of flex on sticks, an important point to mention is that sticks are also available in different heights. So just because you're picking up a stick that's 85 flex or 70 flex or 75 flex, it doesn't mean that they all have to be the same height. You can get them in different heights depending on where you're shopping from, which will help you minimize the effects of chopping or cutting a stick down to fit your particular height and playing style. Typically, we of course hear that sticks need to be between the tip of your nose and the chin to have a kind of optimal height for essentially being able to have a good level of control over the stick. Again, personal preference can come into play here because some players like to have a slightly longer stick, some players like to have a slightly shorter stick. But when you chop a stick down, every inch you take off of a stick shaft, you're essentially increasing the flex of that stick by 3 to 5 flex. So if you're taking quite a big chunk off of that stick, you're going to be really altering the flex of that stick significantly. So if you find yourself doing this, it would be recommended to figure out what your height is and order your stick according to your height, because that means that you're going to minimize the amount of impacts and effects that you put the stick through after you cut it down to fit the size that you need it. From there, we're going to be looking at stick curves. This is going to be one of those points that I feel has drastically changed in the last few years. If you go back just a few years ago and you were shopping for a stick, let's say you were going to go for 85 flex, you're right-handed, you would have tons of different stick curves to choose from. 10, 15, perhaps even more than that depending on which manufacturer you were looking at. But something that I've noticed over the last few years is that manufacturers have really been limiting and restricting the amount of curves that they offer at a retail level. Of course, if you're going for a pro stock or a custom order, this is completely different. You kind of open yourself up to a lot more options with the stick that you're going for, not only with the curve, but also with various different heights. There's a ton of different options when you go custom or pro stock versus retail, but just remember that we're looking at it from a retail perspective. I've seen manufacturers go from offering 10 plus curves to 3 or 4, which is quite a drastic change. But the reason for that is because when you look at sales in hockey sticks, if you find that the majority of sales, the majority of every single stick that gets sold is essentially 3 major curves, and you offer 10 or 11 or maybe more. From a production scale and also from a retail perspective, this is incredibly costly and painful because retailers don't just have to order that one curve in an 85 right-handed, they have to get it across the board in all of the different flex profiles, the different lies, the different stick heights, left and right-handed. All of this affects the amount of SKUs or the amount of products that a retailer has to order and carry to be able to cater for a variety of players. But if you find the majority of all of the sales are essentially 3 different curves, it isn't logical for you to carry 10, 11 curves when you're only realistically selling 3 to 4 different curves that you offer in store. So this is one of the reasons that you're seeing a massive reduction in all of the different curves that are available from all manufacturers. This isn't me picking on one manufacturer specifically. This is something you're seeing all of the major manufacturers doing in hockey. It's something that I feel like is going to continue. But like I said, when you go pro stock or custom, there are way more options available in those respects. So when we look at kick point, this is one of those elements that, again, is something that not all players stand by. Of course, I'm going to preface this video by saying that any stick can be used to take any type of shot on the ice, of course. Just because a stick is optimized for quick releases, snapshots, wrist shots, that's not saying that you can't use it to take big slap shots. But it just means that the characteristics of that particular stick are optimized for a particular type of shot on the ice. So when we look at a low kick point stick, essentially that means that because it's low kick, that particular stick's features are optimized, or you could say its properties are optimized to help it take a specific type of shot. Now that means any type of shot that requires a quick release, so you're essentially trying to catch the goalie off guard. That includes things like snap shots, maybe a quick backhand, also things like quick wrist shots. Those types of shots on the ice are going to be best executed with a stick with those particular types of properties. But like I said, you can take any type of shot that you want with any stick, but that's what that stick is essentially optimized to do on the ice. So when we look at a mid kick point stick, what does that mean? So mid kick point sticks, or depending on which manufacturers you look at, for example, you could also be looking at a hybrid kick point stick, essentially means that these sticks are optimized to take a variety of different shots on the ice. and do appeal to a larger variety of players on the ice. So a mid-kick stick, if we look at Bauer, for example, could be looking at the Nexus or Nixus range like the Geo. And if we're looking at CCM for a hybrid kick point stick, which is going to be the closest thing to a mid-kick that CCM produce, that would be something from the JetSpeed, the FT4 Pro, for example. That would be a good example of a hybrid kick point stick. These two sticks will fit quite a large portion of players, and it's sticks that we have previously looked at in videos. If you do want to see those videos, I'll link them down below. But these sticks, again, they just appeal to a broader variety of players who like to optimize perhaps big wind-up shots, but also want to be able to take those quick, snappy shots when they need to. Now, last up from that is going to be high kick point sticks. Now, high kick sticks are utilized, you guessed it, to be able to take those big wind-up shots. So if you're the type of player that really likes to shoot from the point, perhaps a defensive player, you like to take those big wind-up slap shots, or even if you're doing wrist shots, you like to wind up on them as much as you can, get as much power and force and energy transferred into that puck as possible. These types of sticks are going to be the best ones for that. Like I said, it's not about what stick you can use for what shot, and then it means that that stick can't be used for another type of shot. It's just optimized to help you excel at taking a specific type of shot on the ice. Now, of course, a lot of players do mix it up. Although this is what manufacturers feel, player preference, of course, trumps everything. It's something that we like to mention on this channel all the time. But the idea behind explaining kick points is to let you know that there is a difference, and it is a difference that you can feel. We've shot a video trying to figure out if you can actually feel kick point if you remove the branding of a stick and put it into players' hands. I'll link the video down below. And all of the players, which was JJ and Tommy that we tested during this video that we were shooting, could absolutely feel the difference between these sticks' kick points. So it's not something that's made up, it's real, and it really does impact the way that you perform on the ice. Nowhere near as much as things like lie, getting the right flex, getting the right curve, but of course the kick point does matter. It's just that little extra that you can have added onto the stick that you're selecting to ensure that you can maximize your specific playing ability on the ice. But of course, videos that go into much more detail on all of the aspects that we've covered in this video, especially kick point, will be linked down below in the video description. As always, guys, a big thank you for watching this video all the way to the end. I hope you guys were able to take away something from this video, especially the points about lie and also flex. If you have anyone that you think might benefit from watching this, please make sure that you share it. Any questions, leave them down below in the comment section, and I'll catch you in the next video. Before we wrap, make sure that you thumbs up and you subscribe, and take care till next time.